Hi, I'm Liz.
And I'm Rhea.
Welcome to Karma's My Bitch, a podcast about
sex,
love,
magic,
desire,
purpose,
bliss,
and how life isn't simply the stories we tell ourselves.
I would say majority of people really love sex. I haven't done a poll, but most of us really like sex. To be fair, though, a lot of us equate sex with orgasm, which is not all of what sex is. And because of that, a lot of us aren't really doing it right. Isn't that kind of funny to think about? Because
Vivian Winslow. Go on, Vivian. Go, Viv.
Go, Viv. Yay, Viv. It has a lot to do with the fact that we base how we perceive and do sex around how other people do it. What we've gotten from books, what we get from porn, what we get. If it's not visual, then it's like, what gets passed down, right? What have we learned from our first partners? Our experience of sex is very limited, if not highly dysfunctional.
What would guidance classify as sex?
Excellent question. Well, first, interesting. They're like, it's not about intimacy. It's about honesty. What are my desires? And how do I best connect my desires with your desires? That they become one. One as in we can explore all of that together. If not in one night or in one moment or, in one instance, then over time. How lovely is that? I can be on board with that.
That's really nice. And
yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Go on.
No, I got nothing else at the moment.
Okay, fine.
You have another question though?
So that's how sex can be, it's not just intercourse.
No, not at all. There's so many ways in which we can, explore each other's bodies, explore each other's desires, fantasies, that it's not limited to just, as you might say, banging.
Fine, but is it limited to our genitalia? And
I
can't believe I just said that word on a podcast.
You mean our parts?
Our parts, our private parts. But do you know what I mean? Like, what else could it be? What else are we talking about? Like sexting? Like, do we have to be in the same room?
No, you don't have to be in the same room because, masturbation is certainly possible. We could be long distance. Gosh knows, how do people do it? I guess there were letters maybe.
Does it have to be with another person?
No, not at all. But it's a lot more fun with other people.
Okay. So technically in bliss, if you, let's say, you could just be banging yourself all day and that's also something.
No, you wouldn't want to be banging yourself all day in bliss. In bliss, you won't necessarily have time. You really won't. You could, but bliss is relational in that respect that you're going to want to relate.
Okay, fine. I
put that in quotes. I mean, honestly, that sounds so dumb.
So when you say we aren't doing it right, what is doing it right?
Doing it right is three things. The first is being really honest. I actually really want to be here. Yeah. I want to be fully present in my body. I'm not doing this for validation. I'm not doing this for some weird ego filter because I just had to have, because you're hot and I just feel good if I think I've had sex with a really hot person.
Yeah.
Honesty is the first reason. The second is full on desire. I'm so in touch with who I am, as in consciousness, right? That I know and I'm very clear about what my desires are. And if we're in full body consciousness, especially, or in higher consciousness, because in bliss we're like divine consciousness, right? I know what my desires are because I feel them. I know what my physical body likes. I know how it responds. I know what it takes to really not only get turned on, but stay turned on.
That's the bit.
A lot of people lose interest. I mean, you're barely, in penetration when people are like, what am I here for?
Yeah. It's funny. It's very rare to actually remain engaged. Yeah.
You got to be fully turned on. And in bliss, you are going to be turned on. Before that, though, who knows? Who knows? I mean, everyone's different. Some people never have issues around sex. I don't know if I've ever encountered those people, but...
Well done for them.
I know some. Exactly.
And what is the third thing?
Interesting. The third thing is picking the right person. And
I have many follow-up questions.
Okay.
Go on.
But when we're using right and wrong, the concepts very loosely, because in bliss, there's no right or wrong, really,
No,
right?
no.
And karma, it's separation that loves right and wrong and polarity and all that. So it's just really the only way in which we can kind of describe how the ideal way in which one can engage in the less than ideal. That's all. That's it.
So, first follow-up question.
Yes.
If you're not in touch with your desires, how do you become in touch with your desires?
Well, we have the whole karmic undoing process. Now, often in karma is where our sexual dysfunction gets born, because we're using sex as a tool, either a tool to be loved, to be seen as lovable, to be seen as desired, to be validated to some degree, right? Or to be made whole. That's where sex addiction comes in. When you've gone through the karmic undoing process, sex might take a back seat, as in, I don't know if I really need to be having sex right now, or making that a priority, or even relationships priority, because I need to, like, my relationship with myself is tantamount, right? That's paramount here right now. Post karmic undoing process, post hell, is where we then start to understand, where does sex fit into my life? Because as we talked about in magic, our desires matter.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, they matter because we need to figure out our purpose. So when we're really purpose engaged, when we're fully engaged with ourselves and doing what we want to do and prioritizing ourselves, often that's when the sexual desire starts to come in. Okay. We might need a little help with that, because in our environment, in this world, for some, it's really difficult to get in touch with.
And how would you do it?
Some people then rely on external factors, either porn or romance novels, etc., maybe just to get a little bit, just to feel titillated. But those are just Band-Aids, because we've been so suppressed for so long that sometimes it takes understanding, can I even find myself desirable? Can I touch myself? That's where masturbation can be so healing, is, can I really like my body enough to want to fuck it?
Okay.
Sorry. That's okay. Like weird. Okay.
No, makes sense. And then but the final follow-up question, I hope, is, when you said the right person, how do you know whether it is the right person? Interestingly,
you can't go off vibe.
Okay.
So when you become the right person for yourself, as in you're able to meet your sexual needs as best as you can, right? Not everything can be met by you.
Yeah.
Certain things might require a partner or two, whatever. Certain fantasies don't just involve ourselves, and that's totally cool and important, I think, because in this world, we're here to be around other people. So, but until you know how to meet your own desires and know yourself sexually, it might be really difficult to recognize when someone else would be good in bed. And sometimes it's never the person you think.
That's
you know
true.
what I mean? And when you're kind of tuned in, so we talked about, I think, tuning a few episodes ago, or very recently in one of the first 5. When your heart is open and you're kind of tuned in, and when you know yourself well, is when then you can be sort of tuned in, like, who's going to be good for me? And that's just purely sexual. And you have your post-hell reality, your post-karmic undoing process, and your post-hell reality to start to figure this out. It might take a few people. I mean, there's no limit, really. The whole point isn't just to, like, have a different partner each day of the week to figure this out. Like, I just try to figure out, like, who's really good in bed here. It's about you often and what you bring out as well. So you got to really think about what you're bringing to the table.
And also, you mean, like, obviously there's the obvious stuff of, like, if you know that you like things when they get a little bit naughty, the last thing you're going to enjoy is sleeping with someone who thinks that's just, like, the worst thing ever, right?
Yeah.
So, like, some of it is just, like, your desires have to be aligned.
Yes.
But then I remember that there was this episode that we did in season 8, I think, or season 9, where it was like, if you're not sure, sometimes having just one partner and sleeping with them for a while crystallizes a lot of that for you.
Yes.
And I assumed it was like, oh, because you're just going to have amazing sex all the time, and then you'll know what that is. But actually, what I've started to understand is that often it's like, oh, I'm capable of settling for a lot less, and it's actually not what I want. So sometimes with sex, it's about that trial and error is more learning what you don't want rather than what you do.
It can be.
Anyway,
it's a little less fun that way, I think.
It's I mean, for sure.
Yeah, and I think, and I was going to allude to that episode as well, because I think it was sort of part of our modern love series, where some relationships can just be sexual in nature, And it can last as long as it lasts. But it's sort of that monogamy. I'm only going to be with you for now. And I'm going to live out whatever my desires are. And I'm not going to sit here and sort of feel self-conscious about that because I'm so comfortable with you.
Yeah. Sex can be one of those things that kind of gets you through your karma because it connects you to that power. It shows you what the karmic undoing process is like on a physical basis. And then that can bleed into the rest of your life the other way. You learn that actually you saying yes when you mean it, you saying no when you mean it. You learn that you being turned on, you being present, all the things. And that chapter, for all the sex puns that it has, is in Karmic Affair a really good one.
Karmic Affair or Karmic Attraction?
Karmic Affair.
Okay.
Come together. It is such a great way of connecting to your power and then letting that power bleed into the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not the only way, and it's not the only way one relies on it, but it definitely can remind you of who you are.
Yes.
And that maybe the identity that you've created around yourself is not necessarily accurate. Mm-hmm. And it's freedom in a way that can be reasonably easily accessible.
It's not something we stay in or we play in for long. It's just long enough to show us who we are and where we're at in our evolution, just like you said. But I do think it's important to address when we talk about what it takes to become our most sexually powerful selves. And as you said, and how does that bleed into the rest of our lives?
It does. No, it's insanely.
It does. It's just, it can't not because of that power. Now, by the time we get to bliss, circling back to bliss, because this is the bliss season, we go from personal power to, in bliss, divine power.
Okay.
And when we're running that much energy, by the time we're in bliss, that energy can sometimes just feel really sexual. It isn't always, but it is so strong and powerful, especially in the early days of bliss where you're just not used to running it. Because it's just such an overload of energy. You're like, oh my God, I need to have sex now. Absolutely.
And I guess you're so divine that you can make that happen.
Yeah. Well, as we talked about, that's why some of your relationships are solidified by then. So you have a channel in various ways for this. If it's not just sexual, then it's going to be creative, right? Because unadulterated divine expression and creation not only knows sex well, it's going to want it. That's just a fact because that energy is so powerful and potent. So
does that mean that by the time we get into bliss, sex isn't so much about like figuring out our desires, more that it's just a given and it's just part and parcel of our lives?
Exactly.
But does this mean that we need to be in partnership?
No, not at all. It just means that we will not go too long without it. And by too long, we mean months, not every couple months, like not more than every couple months. Sex is really one of the highest expressions of our divine power, because we're not only connecting to divine consciousness, but also the divine who is us. When we're operating from that, it's almost like you're just transcending everything, the physical and time. So of course, you're going to want that experience. It's heady, and it is you fully expressed.
But I found, like, when I was, like, super, like, going through, like, the happiness flow thing, I wasn't that bothered.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, like, it just, everything kind of was the same, and it was kind of familiar, so it just kind of got a bit boring.
Because complacency is part of the issue around, or can be an issue around happiness, because it's always going to maximize the familiar. But when it comes to bliss, you're always going to want to find creative ways to be creative. So in that respect, you're limitless. And that sounds really broad because I was like, okay, well, what does that mean?
Creative ways to be creative. It sounds like life is life. Go on.
I breathe, therefore I am. Yeah. You're already rather creative being if you've been able to magic things in your life. And you get to bliss and you're like, all right, I'm already creating my new reality. How do I want it? Where do I want it? How often I want it? It's going to vary. And that's kind of nice. So it's not always so predictable. Oh, Sunday night rolls around. Okay, I guess we're doing it now.
Okay, fine.
But
also, do you have that bit of like, you'll stop at nothing to get it as well, right?
Yeah. But not in an addiction way. But it's just there's one person in my life that I know where we really gel and we get on well enough to get it on.
Yeah.
and it is so satisfying for both of us that we can't stay away from each other very long, that's what that looks like.
That's so nice. That gave me such a nice feeling.
Yeah, it is really nice. And I hope it gives all the feels. So
Yeah.
here's sex for everybody.
So it's kind of like just
I'm a big
normalizing
believer.
it in a way that like it's all about just like I'm expressing my power and I'm enjoying my power, and it's not about like the shit that came before it.
Right.
It's not about what could happen next. It's about this pure enjoyment of yourself and another together. I, thou, plus, plus, plus.
Exactly. Because, and mind you, and when you say it's not about anything from before, that's true. And that's really important. By bliss, you're not engaging in sort of these toxic or dysfunctional practices or fetishes. And this is not a judgment thing. If you've got a fetish or you've got anything, this is really sex in bliss.
Okay.
So whatever is sourcing this power, it is true divine power. This isn't trauma-informed power.
That's the difference. So it's not about the fetish itself. It's like where the fetish came from. Because it could just really turn you on to do X or Y. That's not the issue. It's just, oh, I do X and Y because when I was 3 years ago, I did X and Y and I didn't feel like the sexual revolution is for that. That's TM.
Exactly.
But that's where the sexual revolution is for, is to go through and kind of sort all that out. By this point, that's settled. And it's more about like what just really makes me feel alive and excited, which is another word, I guess, for desire in some ways. But it's funny because I always assumed, like when I was a lot younger before we started on this whole KMB journey, which obviously is the antithesis.
Has been a journey.
And, you know, it's the antithesis of what one would assume, because as you evolve, sex matters less and less because you're just like omming with like, you know, the trees.
Oh, and then all that source energy satisfies us.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
We don't need more.
Yeah. But actually, it feels like it becomes even more important because it's just like this raw connection that it's not about a tool for validation or need, but it's a way to express our divinity and like, oh, I am here and I'm just grabbing life literally sometimes by the balls.
Because we're here for connection. The divine didn't come here. Again, we say this over and over. The divine didn't come here to live in to exist in a vacuum.
I mean, otherwise it just wouldn't have come here, of all the places.
Or be in these bodies that are capable of sex. And not just sex for reproduction, which is also really important because that's the divine, perpetuating the divine, which is beautiful in itself, right?
Which again is sex. So
and is important. But it's all important. And yeah, this idea that transcending our sexual desires, it's the ultimate act.
Yeah.
Like the final act of our of our lives, and by then we know then we're done with our human existence, is such a lie. It was a lie to control us in separation, because if we could control and tame our sexual desires, then everything else can be controlled.
There's such raw creative power when you're free in sex.
Yes.
That it has been curtailed so that we didn't have it. And so it's actually funny, if you look at a lot of anything that we do, if you think about the things that are super taboo in that way, like generally sex, freedom, you know, and the things that have all these rules around it, it's like, why? And often like that why is, well, so you're not as powerful as you can be.
And when it starts to come out after being repressed for so many years and so many lifetimes, what happens is, I mean, that's what helps feed the dysfunction. So then we get lost in trying to sort it, where then we think, okay, then I'll just kind of do it this way, or I won't do it at all, because it's a lot easier than feeling out of control.
And it's a lot easier than having to face any of my issues around it.
Precisely. And so that's what we keep putting that on the next generation, to the point where, does anybody know their sexual identity anymore? And I don't mean gender identity, I mean sexual identity. And I'm not saying it's so that we can identify ourselves, you know, according to the type of sex we have, but as sexual
are you
beings.
sexual beings?
Precisely. Can we recognize ourselves as sexual beings and understand that, well, there's more to us, that is an essential part of who we are. And every time we keep denying it, even if we say it as a quote unquote spiritual being, we keep denying a fundamental part of ourselves. So then we just kind of lock ourselves in this loop. And what we then end up doing, and I'm going to give you the spiritual bit of this, sex becomes a mental thing. if we deny its connection to our physical bodies, if we keep suppressing our physical need for it and all that that contains, which is important because, again, full body consciousness, our physical bodies need to be on board, then we lock ourselves in this idea that our spiritual world becomes a mental exercise. And we know what happens when the mind takes over everything.
It's a fucking shit show. So really, sex can ground us in the physical reality.
Absolutely.
And
which
is
so
kind
important.
of partly why we're alive. It's better than a walk in the woods.
I think connecting to nature is it can be very heady in its own way and very healing.
Yes.
Just going to give you that. I like, I like connecting to nature. I like putting my feet in the sand, but that's just not as good as having sex, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Maybe doing both. Well, maybe not at the same time because sand gets everywhere.
Yeah.
But like putting my feet in the sand and then going to have sex is awesome.
Yes, that sounds like a good plan. That sounds like a good plan. But no, what you're saying makes sense to me. It really does. Because if you think about it, we don't sit down and we don't imagine eating food. We eat food.
Yeah.
And the more present we are when we eat food, the more we enjoy our meals and the less we snack and the less we binge and the less we have a dysregulated relationship to food. Mm-hmm. So why would it not be the same for the other physical pursuits?
You would think. But we have so much wrapped up because of the way the tent poles in separation, tent poles being, whatever, government, religion, and economy, have controlled sex.
So to make money off us,
sex.
whilst also telling us we shouldn't be having it, whilst also trying to regulate how and when we have it.
Exactly. It's all so fucked up. So to be able to heal all of that, again, all has to be done before we can get into bliss. Sex and bliss, it's twofold, yeah? It's pure divine expression and complete and total body autonomy.
So important.
Two things, so important, and two things we've never had in our human lives.
Sexual freedom is I choose who to fuck, when to fuck, how to fuck. And the other person's doing the same. And then you come together and you're like, oh my God, we're both choosing this together. How fucking cool is that?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
that is
exactly.
That's not just winning the game. That's like the best game ever.
Yeah. And as you said, it's not a form of revolution. By the time we're in bliss, we're past all of that. There's no fight to fight. This is just our nature now.
We just get to enjoy it.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Karma Magic Bliss. For more information, resources, and links to our books, check out our website, karmamagicbliss.com, and Karma Magic Bliss across all socials.
And if you liked what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a review.